Are self-help coaches and today's misguided mentors preying on people's faith in God? Well, I'm going to ask that question, and we're going to take a deep dive into that. And I'm going to give you my thoughts, of course, in today's episode of today's misguided mentor. So welcome back, guys. This is actually a topic that's been on my mind for some time now, especially since I realized how often this just keeps coming up and how often I notice it. So this is actually a very real problem. This is a huge problem. And so we're going to dive into this, talk about I'll call out some people who I think do that. There's so many of them who do this that I actually forgot. There's a long running list. Some people I've heard really kind of quoting Bible scriptures and leaning on the Bible in their coaching and their mentorship. And then there's some that I've checked into and formed an opinion about. There's some that I haven't really dove into deep enough to form an educated guess and to see if they're actually authentic or if they're actually using God and faith to infiltrate people and get them to let their guard down, be vulnerable, and ultimately deceive them into business. So we're going to talk about that. By the way, if you are on Instagram, what's up, guys? Hey, if you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, please do that, because I keep telling people I am not going to be doing Instagram lives while I stream much longer. So in order for me to see your comments and your engagement, I'd love for you to pop on over to the YouTube page. That way we can I can see your engagement and I can respond to you without looking over to the camera. So if you do that, plus you'll be supporting me on YouTube, which is where I'm going to be focusing all my attention anyway. So appreciate you guys. What's up, Troy? How you doing? Steven Anderson, how you doing, brother? I am live, yes. What's up, man? So anyways, the topic is preying on people's faith in God. All right. A lot of coaches, a lot of self-serving entrepreneurs are doing this. I noticed that some of them do it later on in their coaching career, meaning what I think is happening is they've exhausted all their avenues of targeting entrepreneurs, and then eventually they're like, oh, what's the next level for us? Well, the next level, it seems like, for all these coaches and scammers is preying on people's faith. And that is really messed up, in my opinion. What's up, Kat? How you doing? I have not if you're talking about the YouTube video that we talked about, I have not fully watched it yet. No, unfortunately, I've been too busy. So apologies. I do have it on my calendar to watch, though. And eventually, like I said, I'm probably going to, if it's as good as we talked about and important enough for me to cover, which I think it is, I'll just break that video down in one of these YouTube podcasts. So anyways, let's jump right into it. I think it's important for me to we'll just start off with like me sharing a Instagram post that I just posted not too long ago. And it's a video of me talking about Andy Elliott, who, if you guys don't know who that is, the guy, in my opinion, is a very self-serving entrepreneur. He does a very good job of acting like he cares. Very aggressive, in my opinion, he likes to shame people for their physique, their body weight, shame people for their bank accounts and stuff like that. And then he turns around and acts like he's saying it because he cares about them. The whole Stockholm Syndrome I talked about. And then now one of his most recent things in the last year is he's starting to lean into the faith, which all of a sudden now he's a believer in God. And not only that, he's quoting Bible scripture, and it's really weird. And I could see the shit. I'm onto it. Like I see what's going on, and I know the motive. And after following him and having a little bit of engagement with either him or whoever's running his page and some of his employees, it's very clear to me that they're very self-serving. And, I also have a good buddy of mine, Troy Casey, who claims that, he got scammed by Andy Elliott. And so I don't have any proof, but Troy has some more insight to that, obviously. And he's a very good dude of mine, a very good friend of mine. And I think he's a very good-hearted dude. And so I tend to believe usually what he's saying. Anyways, let's get right into this. This will kind of set the tone and the narrative for what I mean by people preying on faith. And so I just want to share this post that I just did about Andy Elliott and something I've noticed that he's doing, and that's preying on people's faith and how he's using it. All right, let me get the window capture here. This always takes a second. All right, let's see here. Okay, I think we got it. Uh-oh, what's happening? I've never seen this happen before. There we go. Window capture. Okay, there we go. Hopefully you guys can see that, which I think you can. Let's watch this really quick, and then I'll give you my thoughts. We'll break that down right afterwards, all right? Haven't you guys noticed that today's misguided mentors, when they've exhausted every other way to deceive you and manipulate you, they start preying on your faith? Pastor Elliott does a fantastic job of doing this, unfortunately.
In the Bible, 1 Peter 5:7, it says, cast all your anxieties on God because he cares for you. I watch people getting broken left and right. They're just self-sabotaging their life. Guys, give it over to God, because the devil is like a roaring lion trying to devour you. Resist him. Stand firm in your faith, because other brothers and sisters around the world are undergoing the same kind of suffering. And it says, in due time, God's almighty hand will lift you up. You're going through something, I don't care what it is. Guys, lean into God. I could not have done any of this without God. In the Bible, it says 365 times, do not fear. Now I'm thinking big. Real impact in the world comes when you roll with God. When you're average, you're not working hard, you're not threatening to anybody. Quit one way in God. God, and I trust in you. Yeah, I trust in you too, idiot. I freaking keep giving you these chances to change. How many chances do you need? I can't trust you. And I'm an entrepreneur Christian. I am a 21st century soldier of the cross Christian. I believe God wants you to make as much money as you can so you can create the greatest bait to get the most attention to change the most people's lives. I pray that every person here lives at the highest level of human excellence possible when they walk out of here, and that they never are the same again. And they look in the mirror and they own their shit. And the 2 rules to business: don't ever let anybody know your business better than you. And rule number 2, try to figure out how to kick your own ass every day. We're gonna find our holes today, we're gonna fix them, and we're gonna leave here, and we're gonna be the example. We're gonna become savages, we're gonna build big businesses. In your name, God, amen. Let's go. That's how you freaking pray. The devil said right here, he would ensure that you remain comfortable. And other companies out there growing, taking over your market share, they're territory takers, and they're kicking your freaking butt. And you don't even know it, because comfort is crawling all over you. It makes me sick.
It makes me sick too. He even goes as far as to say that he's here to let messages go to people through him, almost like a messiah.
You freaking go to heaven, and God's like, bro, you know, I had you at that Elliott event, right, with the Batistas, and you're like, yeah, but what's this about? He's like, bro, Andy was talking to you, dude. I told him to tell you that. That wasn't him. You were so dumb. The devil hijacked your brain, and you had so much ego and pride you were thinking it was him, but it was me talking to you, dude. I used him as a resource to talk to you. I, matter of fact, made him make that message for your life.
Wow, that's deep. You know what's even deeper? Paying close attention to today's misguided mentors and the coaches out there that do the same thing. Andy Elliott caught on to this, and he noticed what all these other misguided mentors were doing, so he incorporated it into his coaching as well. This is a very calculated move. I need you guys to pay attention to this, all right? Okay, so yeah, there it is. Before I go on, actually, I just wanted to say one more time to everybody, Chicago Cash, Daryl, what's up, Daryl? How you doing, brother? Troy, Steven. Hey, if you guys have not subscribed to the YouTube channel, please go do that right now. And then you could also engage with me on there, because I would prefer you do that, because it's going to allow me to just focus on one screen. It's going to also allow you to keep up with me, because eventually I'm going to put all my focus into YouTube. So Just a reminder, go to YouTube, subscribe, punch it in the search bar. Today's Misguided Mentors, subscribe. Make sure you don't miss this because to answer your question, Chicago Cash, I'm going to be following the story on Wes Watson and all these guys. To be honest, all these guys that I pay attention to, who I consider to be a misguided mentor, in my opinion, are scammers, deceivers, manipulators. I'm trying to bring awareness. Not only that, because in due time, we're going to see, I'm going to be, unfortunately, that dude who's like the I told you so guy, which I hate. I always, in school, I always hated the person who was like, I told you, right? But I'm going to end up being that guy just because it just by default, and I'm not trying to do that for that reason. Like, I don't want to be the I told you guy, but it's going to happen. So I really hope people pay attention to that stuff before it even gets to that point. And that's why I'm calling things out. When I made the Wes Watson post and said Wes is back in prison, a lot of people were commenting on there. He's not in prison. He's already made bail. I'm like, okay, yes, technically the next day he made bail, whatever. When I made the post, he was in jail. Beside that point, come back to this post and this video when he does go to prison, because I'm telling the future, like, he's going to go back to prison. Even if it's not this case, his behavior and the way he carries himself, his emotional instability is going to land him back into prison. And I'm trying to get in front of these things, right? When I talk about Grant Cardone, and I talk about how he's scamming people, how he's deceiving people. By the way, stay tuned, because I'm going to do a video on how Grant Cardone's mentor, Ron Hubbard, is a convicted fraudster. He's been convicted of fraud. I don't think a lot of people know that. And so I think it's important for me to highlight that as a podcast itself and talk about that and really go back into the history of Scientology and this person that Grant Cardone, this thought process that Grant Cardone adopted. But anyways, I'm trying to get in front of this stuff so you guys are paying attention to this, and then you guys can be like, oh, wow, actually you were calling this out quite a bit. What's up? Let me see if I could see your, nope, I can't. It's gone. Shoot, I missed your, message there. Your neighborhood dog. Cat, you were saying in the Bible, the lion represents strength, power, bravery, nobility. It can also symbolize justice, vigilance, and protection. So when he mentions the devil, it's like the lion he doesn't know. Right. I mean, that's a good point. What's up, your neighbor's dog? YouTube is a scam portal. There's so many of them. Unfortunately, that is true. And that's, what can you do? Right. To your point. Well, what you can do is you can be aware, or you can be like me and bring awareness as well. You're either just becoming aware, or you're also bringing awareness, or simultaneously doing both. I think the best you can do is just bring awareness. And then, Kat, you were saying that the Bible never refers to Satan as a lion. Interesting. So, yeah. What's up, Prince? How you doing, brother? So, good point. And, what I'm trying to, I had a thought there and I lost it. But basically, what can you do? Well, it's kind of like my whole channel, right? My whole channel is based around today's misguided mentors, right? And it's about the unregulated self-development matrix, the predatory atmosphere and the predatory environment that's created in networking, public speaking events, coaching, mentorship, masterminds, webinars, you name it. It's unregulated. So what does that mean? That means it's the wild, wild west. People are getting away with all kinds of stuff. It's borderline legal. And so what I'm doing now that I've realized that, and I've been through that, and I had a whole, experience with Grant Cardone and the 10X community, where I was a 10X business coach for several years. And then looking back on that after I voluntarily left, I was like, holy shit, I was in a Scientology cult, like straight up. Not only that, they were trying to turn me into one without me even knowing it. After that whole experience, I've realized, like, wow, there's nothing to really prepare people that are in like self-help spaces or just getting into the self-development, entrepreneurs, people that just want to better their lives. There's nothing. There's no resources. There's no preparation. There's no playbook. There's no like hey, something to lean on. You know what I mean? And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to focus on that. I'm going to create a channel. I'm going to write a book. I'm going to do all kinds of things to literally bring awareness to this and try to get in front of it. That's all we can do. Like if there's no regulations, there's no laws preventing these people from scamming, then somebody has to do something, and that's the least I could do, I feel like. So that's the whole, to your point, the naughty dog, your neighborhood dog, sorry. You were saying that, I can't remember. I can't see your quote anymore, but you were saying something about there's so many of them. That's what you're saying. It's a scam portal. Exactly. What's up, Mr. Jiggleballs? You're ready for the Grant Cardone evidence. Scientology is wild. You're not saying Grant Cardone isn't a scammer, because he sure does sound like one and act like one. I just want evidence to be released. So here's the problem. I've talked about this on a couple of my posts. It's really hard to prove. Like, it is really hard to prove. And to my point that I just made a couple seconds ago, it's unregulated. It's legal. A lot of these things that these guys do are legal. They're dancing along the lines of legality, which makes it very, very hard to prove. It makes it extremely hard to convict them of something. I'm surprised that even Ron Hubbard, the man who created Scientology, was convicted of fraud over in France. If you didn't know that, look it up. I'm going to do a whole podcast on this. But yes, Ron Hubbard was convicted of fraud in France, and I think he ended up fleeing France to come to here, or he also fled the United States to go to France. I don't know. The guy's done so much fraud and so much fleeing that I couldn't keep up with the story. But I was really shocked to hear that, because when I read some of the notes on it, which I'll end up going over in the podcast that I end up doing about it, the lady just made some claims saying that he deceived her into buying programs and courses. And also made claims that his programs heal people and cure sicknesses and stuff like that. So it's just really hard to prove. And so it's going to be a while until you get some proof, probably, to be honest. But let's hope that does happen, because unfortunately, the laws revolve around evidence and proof. And let's hope that we can get some type of proof that it's actually going to get the man, locked up or something like that. I don't wish anything bad. I'm going to say this again. I don't wish anything bad on these people that are doing evil. However, I'll say it the way I said it before. I don't wish any bad intent. I don't wish people to go to jail, and I don't wish for them to die or anything bad like that. However, I wish for it to stop. The evil that they're doing, the evil that they allow to operate through them, I hope that stops. And whatever that takes, I'm okay with. That involves them going to jail, sitting in a jail cell for a few years to think about what they've done, to hopefully have an epiphany to change when they get out. So be it. Whatever it takes. So I'm really hoping that whatever it takes for Grant to wake up happens. And going to jail might be that thing. Who knows when that's going to happen. There are some things cooking up. He's being federally investigated right now. So anytime the FBI is investigating somebody, it's at least something to pay attention to, all right? Grant also, by the way, preys on people's faith. If you haven't, I've heard him several times. He compares himself to Jesus. He drops, he always brings up the name of Jesus and God and when he's talking. However, he doesn't even believe in God himself, from what I know. Scientologists don't believe in God. And you can look into that, you can more into that. But so that to my point about this particular stream, preying on faith, Grant Cardone does the ultimate way. He literally doesn't believe in God, but here he is dropping quotes and talking about what God says he wants, things that happened to Jesus, happened to him, all this shit. It's crazy. I've heard him say it so many times in real time, in person. But yeah, you were saying, because obviously he's doing a good job, that he hasn't been caught by now. Yeah, he is doing a good job. What's going on here? Here we go. I don't know why that did that. Anyways, I'm doing fantastic. Thank you, Mr. Jiggleballs. By the way, just saying your name it makes me want to chuckle. Mr. Jiggleballs is hilarious. So I'm doing fantastic. Thank you. Your neighbor's dog, we need to start contacting the FCC and track what these people are doing. Naive people are losing millions to these leeches. A lot of these scammers come from the same tribe. Yeah, exactly. So you're right. There are people that need to kind of band together and bring more awareness. See, the thing about this is a lot of Scientology and the people that work within Scientology and people like Grant, they and Kat, matter of fact, I think Kat is on here right now. She can testify because this happened to her as well. She was a 10X tenant, which eventually we're going to get her on here doing an interview and talk about her story. But she's an example of how they tried to shut her up by paying her. They tried to get her to sign an NDA of the terrible experience she had. And that's what Scientology does. They try to pay people off, silence people. A lot of these stories don't come out for that reason and many other reasons. Other reasons are people get embarrassed. People are scared. That's one of the obvious reasons. They're scared of Scientology coming after them. They're scared of being sued, so they're scared of losing money. There's just a lot of stuff. Some people just simply want to forget it. They don't want to relive the trauma. They don't want to talk about it. It's just like a bad nightmare they want to forget. So there's so many reasons why it doesn't get talked about enough. And I definitely wasn't one of those people. You know, as soon as I left, within a week or two, I was like, I'm talking about this. Not only that, I don't care. Like, I'll call people scammers. I'll call people that these are my opinions. Like, and it's not just my opinion. Certain people that I've spent time with, like Grant Cardone for several years, I'm going to make my educated opinion, right? I'm going to share my experience, and I'm not going to hold back. So anyways, you were saying before even the fraud, you've always thought that he still does the cocaina. I'm not sure what cocaina. Gotcha. Yeah. Dude's nose and body movements for years has been wild. You know, good point. He's very, very, you know, and that could just be the way he is. Although I will say, I've been to 10X headquarters several times as a 10X business coach, and there's a lot of times where he's just kicked back. He's just chill, and he's not that wild. So you're right. There's something he does to get all fired up and amped up. But you were saying, what's up, Kashif? Grant must be very good at hiding stuff. It'll be hard to catch. 100%, dude. Like, that's what I'm trying to say. Like, he's got the protection of Scientology, and now he's trying to get the protection of politics, like I was talking to Kat about. He keeps brown nosing to Donald Trump and other people in politics, and the reason for that is to serve himself, obviously. He's just trying to look for ways to get veils and protections for the things that he's doing. But Kat, you were saying there's a ton of evidence in the interviews that Grant does. The discrepancies are so obvious. Also, Grant had to agree to a real page agreement, which is software antitrust law. Yeah, man. Yeah, Kat. That's the thing. It's obvious to us, right? It's obvious to people who are awake and aware of these things. Unfortunately, a lot of people are living their life chasing money, ego, self-pride, all these things. And so they're blind to that shit. Guys like Grant embody and encourage you to continue to do that. They encourage you to chase all that stuff. They encourage you to embody that. And that's what life should be. More money, more money, more money, more ego, more pride, more status. Like, that's what they promote. It literally is. There's no humbleness. There's no satisfaction. There's no, all that stuff is considered average. And average is someone who's living below their potential, someone who's given up on their dreams and all that shit. So there's just a narrative that's it's brainwashing. It's manipulation at its highest. So, Kashif, I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much. Kat, I appreciate you as well, of course. And Grant and Brecca, you were saying, is going at it with the 10X health thing. Yeah, so I'm actually working on a side project that might involve Gary Brecca. Let's hope so. What's up, Chicago Cash? Thank you, brother. I appreciate that, man. Like I said, be sure to go to Today's Misguided Mentors on YouTube and subscribe, brother. Yeah, so there's some things I'm working on, and I'm hoping that I can get put in contact with Gary Brecka. That way we can get him on board with sharing his thoughts. Obviously he had a terrible experience, not necessarily with Grant. He seems like he's reluctant to talk about Scientology and Grant Cardone. However, he did speak his mind about Brandon Dawson, and I also had a personal experience with Brandon Dawson where the motherfucker ripped me off and completely scammed me and deceived me and made me a bunch of promises that he was going to deliver this and that, and none of it ever happened, and all it ended up being was another. It was a $40,000 program I bought that really didn't amount to anything. All that happened there was he tried to upsell me to a $300,000 product that I obviously didn't take, and so it was just a complete waste of time. Another guy that also preys on faith. I think I've heard him talk about God too. So, and then Mr. Jiggle Balls. Why is that fun to say your name? You were saying you saw me on a video that it made me laugh out loud when I said, "Guess he thinks he's gonna have protection by being the governor of California." Yeah, he honestly does. Like I said, in my opinion, Grant Cardone, all he's doing is looking for ways to cover his ass. In order for him to continue doing what he's doing, he's got to have backup. He's got to have, which is crazy. That I don't know why guys like John Maxwell and, like good-hearted people or seemingly good-hearted people and coaches and stuff like that are associating themselves with him. And I've talked about this with several people. Either they don't really know what's going on and they're naive as shit, or they're turning a blind eye to it, which is bad in itself too. So anyways, going back to the topic at hand, these guys are preying on faith. I've heard everybody in the thumbnail that I made, all of them like to quote Bible verses and talk about God. I mean, even the video I showed you guys, Andy Elliott went as far as to saying to the guy that like, hey, God put me here and used me to give you a message, and you missed the message or something to that nature, right? And it's like, bro, you're almost like trying to make yourself sound like you're a Messiah or something like that. Like you're a prophet of God. Which I'm not saying is impossible for some people, but Andy Elliott ain't the guy. Andy Elliott is not a prophet of God. Let's put it that way. And so for guys like Andy to make those claims, I mean, just pay attention to him and guys like him. Patrick Bet-David does the same thing quite a bit. I haven't dug enough, but I've done, I won't say that. I haven't dug deep in Patrick David, but I've done enough digging and I've talked to several people who have done business with Patrick Bet-David personally and spent years with him, enough to know that guy is, it sounds like he's scamming. Do I have proof? No, of course not. Unfortunately, we don't got proof, and that's how these guys continue to do what they're doing because they're good at being able to avoid, I don't know, they're dancing on the lines of legality is the best way I can put it. And so therefore they continue to do business as usual. Who else did I put on there? Even Wes Watson. If you pay attention to Wes Watson, he talks about the authentic voice of God and all that stuff and your conscience and all that. It's actually true. For the most part, what he says is actually true. But then you see his behavior and you see him glorifying money, ego, sex, self-pride. And it's like, bro, God doesn't want you to live like that. Why are you acting like you're living the way God would want you to live, right? And this isn't a religious channel by any means. I will say I am 100% believer in God and have a relationship with God. However, I'm going to make it very clear I don't identify with the religion and I don't go to church. I have a very unique thing that happened to me, but I don't bring it up that much. Like, you will not hear me talking about Bible verses, one, because I've never read the Bible, but you just won't hear me leaning on that. I'll have a private conversation with people about that, but I'll never use it like to, and maybe I'm afraid because of what's being created now with these guys, like this whole preying on faith makes me reluctant to talk about it. But yeah, you were saying he was charging people thousands. Spencer Cornelia did a great video on him. Jeremiah Evans pled guilty to defrauding 20 million for 500 plus invested. Yeah, I actually talk to Spencer Cornelia every so often. He's a very good dude, and I like that he's staying in contact, or not in contact. He's staying up to date with some of this stuff. He's onto the right stuff, and he's talking about the right stuff, so I really appreciate him as well. You're also saying that Patrick Bet-David is so convincing. I can never figure out what he was selling. I know he has his podcast. He sells coaching programs as well. Same thing as all these other guys. So yeah, he's got his Inner Circle. He's got his what is his brand? Valuetainment. He's got a lot of things that essentially sell all the same stuff that everybody else sells. Business scaling, personal mentorship, you name it, stuff like that. So, but yeah, Patrick Bet-David is convincing. You know, one thing I've noticed, these guys are charismatic. Not saying, and that doesn't mean like just because someone's charismatic that all of a sudden they're, deceivers and manipulators, and you got to watch out for these charismatic people. But I will say most people that are out here scamming and convincing and deceiving and getting people to make decisions they don't want to, particularly in business, they're charismatic. They need that charisma. And that's why organizations like Scientology target people like Grant Cardone and Patrick Bet-David and all these guys. They're charismatic. They have to be in order to create a cult-like atmosphere and to get people to do things they don't want to. You have to have some type of charisma. You were saying you like Patrick Bet-David. He talks, shoot, I didn't read that part. You don't purchase anything that will be sad if they're scamming. You just listen to their opinions. And then Kat, you were saying Grant is talking taking donations for his 10X California rally. And he states he's not running for governor. He's only running around California to get angry. Yeah, well, we'll see. Grant just keeps pushing on the politics. Mr. Balls, I'll just call you that. Insurance is his money maker, you think, but you never seen him looked at their shop. You just listen to their stuff on recent news and their stuff. Yeah, well, I know somebody who actually worked for Patrick Bet-David on a very high up position, actually. His name is Don. I won't go into details on who he is and his last name and all that. He's moved on since Patrick Bet-David. But he gave me the inside scoop, man. Matter of fact, I jumped on a podcast with a good friend of ours together. And that's how I met Don. I was doing a podcast with somebody, and as soon as I came out, I was kind of shooting the shit with a couple guys that were out there hanging out. And he was coming in to do a podcast with the same guy. And he sat there and stared at me, and he was like, "Where do I know you from, man?" He's like, "You got a familiar face." And he's looking at me. He's like, "Were you on like somebody's podcast or something?" He's like, and then it dawned on me. He's like, "Holy shit, you were on Matt Cox's Inside True Crime podcast." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I was." He's like, "Dude, great podcast. I've been meaning to reach out to you." So anyways, after that, me and Don connected. I hung out for a little bit and watched his podcast. So we recorded at the same time, essentially. But he gave me the inside scoop on his experience about Patrick Bet-David, how he started in the insurance business. I won't drop too much, but Patrick Bet-David is not as good as you think. If you like him, you can like him, but he's done some shady shit. Let's put it that way. Let's see. Your neighbor's dog. Narcissists can have charisma. That's why a lot of them end up in leadership positions. Yeah, 100%. Exactly what I was saying. And you might have noticed a lot of these guys have narcissistic qualities. However, I will say, I think all people have some type of narcissistic quality. And the reason I think that is because I don't get too hung up on the narcissist. And by the way, I agree with you, by the way. Those dudes are narcissistic as shit. But, when you get so caught up on the narcissism, it's almost like, man, when you look at people, it's like no matter what they do or don't, they'll come off as being narcissists. And I've realized that. And once I get my mentality stuck in that space, I'm like, gosh, I don't want to think of this person as being narcissist. Like, let me just feel the energy. Does it feel good or does it feel bad? And that makes it that helps me simplify it rather than put in like a label like narcissism on it. But you're not wrong. Mr. Balls, you were saying, why don't you just go undercover at these places and make a documentary like Borat or Matt Walsh? That's actually a fantastic idea. The problem with that is I got to pay money to go to these events. I've thought about going to like these events, like to see Andy Elliott and Wes Watson. There's no way I could ever get back to Grant Cardone's event. They blocked me. They know damn well who I am. They've went as far as to reach out to former 10X business coaches, colleagues of mine, and say, hey, they like tried to put the fear in them to not interact with me. That's how I know it's Scientology related. They were like, hey, we're noticing, I've had a good friend of mine over in Australia tell me like, hey, we had such and such reach out to me and try to give me a hard time because they noticed I was interacting with you, liking your posts, sharing your posts. And they're still a 10X business coach. So that's why they were like trying to say like, hey, what's up with that? So they know who I am. There's no way I could ever get into those organizations or into a 10X event again. But Kashif, you were saying, did I record the podcast or conversation with the guy that worked with Patrick Bet-David? I did not. It was a private conversation. So I had a podcast with, we had a mutual friend, and we both did a podcast with that mutual friend on the same day. And while we were there, me and him had a private conversation. We went out to eat together and we chopped it up. So that's what, we didn't record that, obviously. Kat, you were saying Grant is delusional. He claimed on X that Trump has appointed him to head of Department of the U.S. Education. There is no department. Yeah, he just makes shit up. He'll just make claims. These guys are the king of claims. Let's put it that way. And so you can't believe everything they say. You are also saying, Kashif, did you ever buy stuff from Grant, Wes, or any of these so-called gurus? I don't think Kat did. She can answer that, but she was a tenant in one of Grant Cardone's 10X buildings, and she had a fucking terrible experience. I did an Instagram live talking about this, and I will end up doing a YouTube Instagram with her, an interview with her as well once I convert this page into an interview podcast. And so she'll be able to share a little bit more of that and peel back the layers. But I don't think however, she's just got a fascinating story where she went to one of the 10X business summit, or not summit, a real estate summit, I think. And what happened at that event to her was actually quite scary and shocking. And so again, keep your eyes peeled because I'll have her on here talking about that story. It's pretty wild stuff. Mr. Balls, you're saying, well, definitely don't waste money on a Wes Watson event. I don't plan on it, man. I don't plan on it. You'd rather give it to Grant Cardone than Wes Watson. Yeah, none of them. They don't all deserve, none of them deserve my money. But you're right. In order for me to go to these events, I would either have to publicly speak myself and get invited to that, obviously, or buy a ticket. And Kashif, you're saying you had mentioned that Patrick isn't everything that he claims to be. What makes you say that? How is Patrick so big online and makes millions? He brags about his house. He made a YouTube video on it. He probably has a lot of money. That's irrelevant, and that's beside the point. What I'm saying is, to your point, what you just said there, just because someone is successful and just because someone has a lot of materialistic things like a house and a jet and all that, doesn't mean that they acquired that in an unethical way. Doesn't mean that they didn't acquire that through deceptive means. That's what I'll say. I've said that before because a lot of things the same thing could be said about Grant Cardone. I've heard the same thing quite a bit. You know, when I first started talking about my experience with Grant Cardone, a lot of people tried to say, well, he must be doing something right. He's got this, he's got that. He's successful and all that. I'm like, just because he has all that does not mean that he's doing evil to acquire that stuff. And unfortunately, some evil things are legal, which is a sad, sad truth. And so, therefore, these guys have latched on to these ways of dancing on the lines of legality to do the business the way that they do it. And it's just flat out evil. When I talk about deception, manipulation, interrogation, harassment, shaming, bullying to do business and sales, they do it. Trust me. And so, again, really hard to prove, but in time, one way or another, justice is going to be served to these people. I don't know if that means they're going to go to jail. I don't know if someone, is going to, make them pay in another way. You cannot treat people the way these guys do forever and not have that stuff backlash on you. So just keep your eyes peeled is all I'm going to say. I'll continue to talk about this. So we'll always end up coming back to this. And at some point, just like Wes Watson, I've been talking about Wes Watson for a year and a half now, and look at what's happening to him now. His emotional instability caused him to beat somebody up and jump somebody. Him and 5 other people or whatever ended up jumping this guy. He's trying to claim self-defense, but he's the one that invited them to come and challenge him anyway. So it's all this stuff is gonna unfold. All these people are gonna get justice one way or another. It is just a matter of time. It really is. Mr. Balls, you were saying, all right, everyone, going to prepare for the Super Bowl. Thanks for hopping on. We appreciate your engagement and your feedback. Definitely catch you on the next live. Take care. Enjoy the Super Bowl. We'll catch you next time. I haven't watched football in so long. I love sports, by the way. I grew up playing basketball in school. I grew up playing football. Excuse me. Never did actually. Ever since the Super Bowl, I'm from Washington, Pacific Northwest, and so the Seahawks were kind of my team when I was watching football. And the Super Bowl where the Steelers and the Seahawks played, where it was the most controversial Super Bowl, if you don't remember. But basically, the Pittsburgh Steelers won that Super Bowl because of a couple callbacks. There was what was it? There was 2 touchdown plays where there was offensive pass interference called on the team. And so anyways, my opinion was the referees dictated who was going to win in that game. And ever since then, I swore, I was like, I can't watch it again, ever again. I'm never watching football ever again because of this. This is terrible. So anyways, ever since then, I haven't. I missed the top part of that comment. You were saying they're showing off how rich they are, then they can show how you too can be rich and buy their so and so. Exactly. You feel like they will investigate West so much deeper now. Bros charging people thousands for some BS coaching you hear. They're also doing that to Grant. In case you didn't know, they're probably investigating Grant Cardone more than anybody else right now. The FBI has been investigating Grant Cardone. Gary Brecka just talked about how Grant Cardone had this conversation with him, where he said FBI is investigating them so much that they've had fake undercover employees being implanted into the organization so they can investigate them. So, yes, you're right. Wes is going to be looked at a little bit more now, but I don't know if he's on the status with Grant Cardone. Grant Cardone's got the FBI looking at him right now, so we'll see where that goes. Your neighborhood dog, you were saying $10,000 seminar for their $100,000 or their $1,000 video tutorials. It's all overpriced. Let's put it that way. I've bought almost every single one of Grant Cardone's programs. And I've also hosted a 10X business 360, or not 360. What do you call that? I can't even think of the name of it now. He's got so many different things. Boot camp, a business boot camp, a 10X business boot camp I put on for Grant Cardone with a couple other 10X business coaches a couple years ago back in Philadelphia. And they're all a waste of time. I mean, I've bought the business coach license. That was $25,000, another $1,000 every year. I bought the 10X 360 program for $40,000. I bought the business Summit for $5,000. I bought 10X stages twice for $5,000. The list goes on. It's all bullshit. It never actually hurt. It helped me anyway. Kat, you were saying to Kashif, you never spent money to buy stuff, but was a tenant, and tenants were living in horrible conditions. And Grant's properties, no money is put into these properties. Properties are slums. Exactly. Grant is a slumlord. And again, Kat can testify to that. I can also testify to that because I spent a lot of time over at the Las Olas building in Fort Lauderdale when I was visiting my business partner at the time. And there was people getting trapped in elevators because the elevator broke down and had the same problem for a year. Just all kinds of shit going on. Yeah, and then Kashif, 100%. NBA and NFL is rigged. So hard to watch the regular season or pay for streaming services to watch these games. Not worth it in your opinion. Yeah, and that's where I'm at, man. And it's really sad to see because I love sports, man. And so it was really sad for me to watch the Seahawks lose that Super Bowl so much to the point where I was like, I can't even watch this anymore. Like, what good is it going to make to invest my support into a team to just have the refs dictate the outcome? And it's funny because this is a different topic, obviously, than what the podcast is about. But years later, the referees that actually reffed that game admitted. Some of them were saying, man, I lost sleep because of the calls I made to that team. And I ain't going to tell you what happened, but I'm going to tell you that it just was not supposed to happen that way. And it was completely the worst outcome ever. So a lot of these, yeah, you should just take a peek at that. If you guys know what I'm talking about, that particular Super Bowl where the Seahawks played the Pittsburgh Steelers, the first time, by the way. Second time, I think I didn't think they played a second time. But the time I'm talking about, like a decade or so ago, it was rigged, man. It was rigged, and it made it a very a hard game to watch. Yeah, so back to the topic of these guys preying on faith. I just want people to pay attention. I want people to pay close attention because the worst way to deceive somebody is to prey on their faith in God and act like they're believers of God, act like they're living life the way that God would want them to live. Pay attention to that is all I'm saying. If you're hyper in tune with your intuition and you have a relationship with God, you'll see what I'm talking about. It's so obvious these guys are just using Bible verses and scripture and they're false. They're manufactured faith to prey on other people's faith. It's the next level of coaching. It's the next level of misguided mentorship. And so I want people to be very, very aware of this because it's really messed up. And I'm sad to see that it's gotten to this point. I guess they've been doing it for a long time, but I've caught on to it. In the last year, I've seen this is just a whole new level of deceiving people. And it's terrible. It is terrible to see somebody prey on someone's faith and, their religion, if it is a religion for them, then that's terrible. Like some people take that stuff seriously. And so if they actually believe that you're being operated by God, you're being influenced by God, you're living your life like God, and here you are quoting Bible verses and stuff like that to try to validate that. That is the worst way to deceive somebody. There's nothing worse than deceiving somebody into acting like you care about them and what they care about, and then turning around and just being a vulture for the things that you want and serving yourself, which in this case is money and ego. Typically it's always money and it's always ego. Yeah, you were saying grant salespeople are constantly annoying and hounding you on stuff. They will call you like crazy and upsell you and stuff you don't need. 100%. I've talked about this several times. If you get on Grant Cardone's email list, it's game over. You're going to get 20, 30 emails a week, and you're going to get at least around average of 3 phone calls a day from these guys trying to call you and hound you to take the next course and make sure you're at the next event. It's pretty terrible. Not only does Grant pay investors back, but his rentals are not only does he not pay his investors back, but his rentals are in really bad shape. Kashif, you were saying you had a buddy that has constantly told you that you need to invest in coaching. You're like, hell no. You can find half of this stuff free on YouTube. Makes no sense to pay $5-10K for what? Exactly. I'm not saying that there's not any good coaches out there, ethical coaches and mentors out there. There are. And I would consider myself to be one. By the way, I'm not selling anything and I haven't sold anything for a year and a half. But there are, and it's unfortunate. It's what has been created now that gives you that opinion. You're right. 95% of coaches out there, it's garbage. It's overpriced. It's all self-serving. The only agenda is for them to actually just get your money. They don't actually care about you or your business or helping you. It's bullshit. There's no actual meaningful relationship formed. So it's, you're right. 5, 10K, it's overpriced once, like you should never pay that much, you know? There's no amount of like that type of money to get coaching or mentorship. That just tells me that, what do I want to say with that? You shouldn't limit yourself. If you want to help somebody, if you're a coach or a mentor, you shouldn't limit people to have access to you, especially if you're ethical. And if you're ethical, if you have a course, fine, whatever. That's okay. My problem isn't with courses. It's with the unethical courses and the self-serving mentors that sell courses. If you're an ethical person selling a course, you will make it very cheap and reasonable. You know what I mean? And make it accessible to people, not $5,000, $10, $20, $50, $100,000. You know, all these guys have stuff that expensive, and that makes it really, really unethical. Like that, there's nothing worth that. Grant Cardone claims that he sells 10 minutes of his time for like $10,000. That's fucking absolutely ridiculous. There's no amount of money, or, you know, like the podcast I did where I talked about how Alex Hormozi he made up a story saying he spent $130K to get 4 coaching sessions with Grant. No, he didn't. In my opinion, he did not do that. That's a made up story. All that did, if you're wondering why I think that, go watch that video. I explain it in depth. But even if that was true, that's unethical. $130K for what? That is ridiculous. That's like $20,000, $30,000 for one hour session to sit with somebody. Nobody's worth that. Nobody is worth that. The amount of whatever information you're going to get is not worth that. It simply isn't. And if you're charging that much, you're an asshole and you're self-serving and you don't care about helping people. You just care about getting money. So that's my opinion about someone, you know, coaching and charging that much money. So, Kashif, you're saying these coaches will never actually provide substance, but only theory. This way you keep coming back for more. That's another way you can tell, 100%. If there's like another one and another level and the next level and this and that and that, you need to buy this next course. You need to do this. You need that. You need it. That's a sign of a misguided mentor. I've talked about this several times, much like my experience with Brandon Dawson, where I paid $40,000 to go to a 2-day event. Already it was overpriced. Already that's ridiculous. I was right. Once I went there, I did not receive any real value. Everything they were teaching me, I was already doing. Really what I found out was they were trying to upsell me. The next thing was they were saying, you want the real answers? You want the real playbook? You want us to take your business to the promised lands? It's going to be $300,000 for the next level. Are you ready? That's what that ended up being. All right. And that's exactly what you're talking about. That's pretty wild to actually think that someone, and all that is preying on people's vulnerability, right? They seen that someone was willing to, by the way, I fucking had a personal conversation with Brandon Dawson in order to pay for that. He sat me down and made sure everybody didn't come around us to talk me into that, and claimed and promised me that this was going to solve all my business problems. I didn't need anything else after this. This was the ticket. And then the next thing you know, I was like, all right, I'm going to trust you, man. Next thing you know, I go there. None of it was of any real value. And they tried to sell me a $300,000 course, which, by the way, I didn't have the money for, but a handful of people did in the room that took that course. And I was like, wow, I was mind blown and super upset. Yeah, your neighbor's dog, you're saying these courses work like Scientology and their sessions and levels, 100%. And the 10X organization is very, very similar. It's modeled and mimicked exactly like Scientology, which is why it's structured that way. There's another level. There's another level. There's no last level. If there is a last level, it's going to take you a decade or two to reach it. Yeah, his name is Brandon Dawson. That's Grant Cardone's business partner. He runs Cardone Ventures, and yeah, so look him up. He's a scammer, in my opinion. He's in my experience. Hell, not even my opinion. Like, I had an experience with this guy, so it's not like I'm spectating, dude. I was fortunately, I was a participant. Your neighbor's dog. You were saying no wonder these scammers hang out with Scientologists. Birds of a feather flock together. 100%. Yeah, absolutely. And they all really model and mimic the same way, even if it's Scientology or not. The structure is the same. It's got to have one person that's being idolized, one person who's being presented as the guru who you need to seek for the answers, for the guidance. It's all structured in levels. You got to pay more. It's all structured in these atmospheres and these events that you go to. Everybody's just feeding off each other. It's all self-serving energy. Everybody's chasing money, ego, self-pride, status. That's all the energy you feel. So it's relatively the same in all cults. It's a cult is what it is. And I'm just glad that, unfortunately I spent a few years in this Scientology spinoff cult, but thankfully I got out of it. And a lot of people don't know they're in a cult when they're in it. I've said this a lot. A lot of people told me I was in a cult and I couldn't hear it. I couldn't see it, and I denied it, and I made excuses of why they were trying to tell me that. And it wasn't until I had like this massive epiphany and like spiritual awakening where I was like, holy shit, I'm in a cult. Like, holy shit, my mind was blown. And that's when I decided to make the tough decision to tell Grant and his team, like, I'm done with this. Like, I'm no longer in alignment with this. And then I asked Grant Cardone to come on to like a live conversation with me to tell me understand and explain why he does the things he does. That's the least he could have done for me after spending, almost $250,000 on his events and getting into the organization. And I got ghosted after that. So it started getting really weird after that. You were saying the hot thing now is remote closing too. Have you guys heard of Dan Locke? Dan Locke is another guy I'll be calling out, man. There's so many. I have a list of misguided mentors who all do the same type of scamming techniques. I think I probably got 30 or 40 on the list right now. There's a lot. There is a lot. The coaching space is like $1 billion industry, or obviously multi-billion dollar industry. And yes, unfortunately, I've heard of Dan Locke. At some point during my self-development journey and trying to be a better entrepreneur, I've taken some advice from some of these people at one point. Dan Locke, I can't remember what advice. I've tried some of their like techniques, their tactics. It's not even a strategy. It's a tactic. Tactics are used during war. It's like, why are we talking about tactics when we're selling and we're in business? It's fucking weird. But yeah, these guys talking about remote closing. There's a lot of people who like Mike Barron. All these guys talk about remote closing. They're like, oh yeah, in case you're wondering how I got all these 3 Lamborghinis back here, is because I sell products for other people. All I do is remotely close. If you want to know how to remotely close, buy my course, $10,000. And it's like, oh my God, there's a lot of those people out there right now. There's companies that I think it's Cole Gordon or Cole Thompson or something like that. He sells closers, actually, where you can hire people to close for you and stuff like that. So yeah, it's wild. It's pretty wild. So I'm gonna jump off here though. I'm gonna wrap this one up. This I could go on and on and on about this topic about misguided mentors preying on people's faith in God. Very terrible. All I'm saying is I want people to pay attention. I really would like for people to pay very, very close attention and see how these guys are doing that. At least be aware. I'm not saying assume that they're doing that. What I'm saying is pay attention. These guys are very, very calculated. And one of the go-to moves for coaches and mentors, especially the ones that are out here deceiving and scamming and interrogating, the next level for them is preying on your faith, all right? And they're going to start quoting Bible verses. They're going to act like they're all holy. They're going to act like they're living their life the way God wants them to. It's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. So pay attention to that so you don't get deceived and your faith doesn't get preyed on is all I'm asking from you. All right. Anyways, guys, everybody who is on here interacting and engaging, I appreciate your feedback and your thoughts. Anytime there's somebody even on here that doesn't agree with what I say, I always welcome that feedback and that engagement. The other thing is also, I want to say on a personal level here with my content creation, you might have noticed that I don't edit. I don't spend any time editing. I'm not trying to. Maybe later on down the road, I'll do all that. But for right now, I'm trying to keep this a very simple, clean, straightforward, authentic form of streaming. And I appreciate everybody's support. If there's anything I can do to be better, with what I'm doing now, I welcome that advice and that feedback as well. Just know that I'm not trying to edit. So if you're like, well, you could do this, you could do that. If it involves editing, I'm not going to do that right now. I will do it down the road. But for what I'm doing now, if you got any suggestions, I want to be better, and I'm open to hearing people's thoughts. I realize that, my message isn't going to get far and isn't going to impact people without people to support me. So I welcome that, and I appreciate everybody who's been supporting me and sees value in what I'm trying to do and the people I'm trying to help. So that does not get taken for granted, and I appreciate that. So thanks, Kat. Thanks, Kashif. Thanks, Mr. Jiggleballs. Everybody else that has funny names. Take care. No problem, Kat. You're good. We're always good. So take care. You guys have a good rest of your Sunday, and I'll probably see you guys tomorrow on the next stream. All right. Have a good evening.